Yo, what is going on, Utility Sports crew? We have a really fun video today. We have a Cincinnati Bengals mock draft. This is going to be a 7-round mock, and this is a team full of anticipation, excitement heading into next year. I know they just came off of a Super Bowl loss, but this team has some really, really good young building blocks and a couple of draft picks away from really, making another appearance in that Super Bowl. There's a couple of things on this roster they're going to have to address, but I think they are definitely in a good position for the future. You look at the core with Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins on offense. It's absolutely crazy. They also have some key free agents that they have to look at bringing back, and also others that they do have to replace long term. And, when you look at that first round, this makes for a really interesting conversation because offensive tackle is the primary need, in my opinion. I don't think that they can really, move forward without that. You also have to look on that interior of that offensive line. Quentin Spain's going to be a free agent. Riley Reef is going to be a free agent, at the conclusion here of this season. So now you have to look at what is on the board. On the offensive tackle side of things, you got Daniel Faalele and Nicholas Pettit-Freer, two interesting options. And then at the guard spot, see guys like Zion Johnson potentially there for you. To me, I want to stick at that offensive tackle spot, preferably. It's a little more important than a guard. Daniel Faalele makes for the perfect developmental prospect. He's 6'8". He's nearly 400 pounds, and he's a guy that you can really mold into a franchise tackle. He has all the physical traits. He shows a lot of great things on film at Minnesota that would really warrant him being a first-round draft selection. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that for the Cincinnati Bengals. Why do I think that? I mean, we saw it throughout the playoffs. They continuously struggled against the pass rush, and it made it really, really tough for Joe Burrow to consistently have time and deliver the ball on time, on target. So Daniel Faalele is actually going to be my pick here. Definitely could consider Nicholas Pettit-Freer in that conversation, who's a really, really good pass blocker in his own right, which would be huge for this, this offense. However, I see Daniel Faalele as the higher ceiling prospect, considering his physical traits. And this is a team that needs to take some risks as well. I think that you don't always want to play it safe. The next spot here, let's go ahead and look at that interior offensive line. Darian Kinnard could be an interesting option, and Dylan Parham as well out of Memphis, a really solid interior offensive lineman in his own right. Let's look at the collective big board, though. I think that's important when evaluating. You don't want to always necessarily go off of quote team need at every single spot. And I'm seeing it here. I think Fedarian Mathis could be interesting from Alabama. I know a lot of people like him. But to me, I think you have to address that offensive line. I think you should actually hit it with the first two selections. Darian Kinnard's an interesting prospect. He's a tackle in college, a little more projectable at that guard spot at the next level. So I think that's really the area that they're going to look in. So Darian Kinnard makes a lot of sense to me. And this offense is going to be super dangerous. The fact that they're able to add two top 63 selections on that offensive line is humongous for this team. I think Joe Burrow is, definitely going to progress with this. And it's important that they continue to aid his development. He already has a lot of great playmakers. But the other area of concern that I think of is that tight end spot. CJ Uzama is in his contract season. I'm not exactly sure what the plans are for the Bengals moving forward. Let's just say in a hypothetical, they can't get a deal done. That is very, very fair to think. I'm not sure what he's going to commend on that open market, but I mean, he had a really, really good season. But to me, you have to look at a guy like Jake Ferguson out of Wisconsin. I'm also looking at that corner spot too. Marcus Jones from Houston could be a huge, huge upgrade in the corner room. I don't know if they're going to bring back Eli Apple. I really have no clue what their plans are there. But I think either or is a worthy selection. They have Drew Sample that can, be that tight end for them. I want them to address that corner spot. It's such a premium position. So I'm going to go with Marcus Jones, really, really good man-to-man corner. And the Cincinnati Bengals have a good opportunity to improve that room. Select a guy like Marcus Jones here in that third round. So I love what we've been able to do with this Bengals team. We spent the 2 first picks on the offensive lineman, and then we come back with a guy like Marcus Jones, who's going to fit in with Cincinnati very, very well. He's going to be a productive corner and a guy you can trust potentially on that outside with this Bengals team. And now looking at round 4. Round 4 is another interesting opportunity for them to, improve that safety spot, because we have to consider Jesse Bates as well. I think they're going to get a long-term deal done. However, guys like Ricardo Allen are in the contract seasons. You have to consider that. At the very worst, this is a depth selection. Also, we have to look back at the tight end spot. I do want to potentially address that. A Garrett Prince could make some sense. However, I do want to look at the safety spot. I think you're going to get a more talented player here. Sterling Weatherford out of Miami of Ohio does not get a lot of looks. Dane Belton could make some sense as well. I'm actually going to opt for a guy like Dane Belton. I think when you look at Cincinnati, they got to be protected on that back end. So, some crucial spots for them heading into the offseason are offensive line and making sure that secondary is in place, because when you're one of those premier teams in the AFC, you have to be able to defend the pass. And that's what getting a guy, like Marcus Jones earlier is going to help you in. Now in that 5th round is kind of the realm where we have to consider selecting a tight end. We have to consider, another linebacker depth-wise. That could be potentially a spot starter. Cole Turner is the best available tight end at this spot. Now at the linebacker position, Mike Rose out of Iowa State could make some sense. Micah McFadden out of Indiana I like as well here. I think either of those could be good. And you could also consider an edge at this spot. Cade Hall out of San Jose State. Michael Clemens out of Texas A&M could be interesting. So this becomes one of those positions where you have to go based on preference. I think I'm actually going to go with a guy like Cole Turner out of Nevada, just considering we don't know the future of CJ Uzama. You got Drew Sample in the fold, but otherwise there's a lot of unknown at that position. You have to make sure you're covered. He might end up being a day one starter as well. So, for the 5th round, that's really, really great value in its own right. And also you're really protecting yourself from just having a little depth in the tight end room. So overall, we're doing a pretty nice job balancing this out. I love what the Bengals can do. A lot of people are, concerned that, the offensive line wasn't great this postseason. By no means was it good at all. However, you've made some huge strides and improvements. I even think you could look at potentially going one more offensive lineman, but at the same time, I do want to look at that edge spot here again. Jeffrey Gunter, a potential interesting name. Jeremiah Moon could be another guy as well. We're going to look once again at that linebacker spot. Ellis Brooks out of Penn State. Nakobe McLean out of Auburn could be interesting. I'm actually going to go with Merlin Robertson out of Arizona State. I think for them, they have to make sure that they shore up that linebacker room. Don't get me wrong. They've made some strides there over the last couple of seasons, especially with the Logan Wilson selection, a guy I was really, really high out of Wyoming. He ends up getting selected there and is an absolute stud. I like Merlin Robertson here. Eventually could work himself to becoming a starter, but nevertheless, this is a really, really good depth wise for them in that 6th round. Gives Sam a good chance to make an impact potentially right away. And now in that 7th round, we have pick 223. And here's where you are going to look for an edge, potentially, maybe another depth offensive lineman. Michael Clemens and Jeremiah Moon are still here. I'm going to end up going actually with Jeremiah Moon out of Florida. This team has to be better up front as well. He's one of those higher upside picks at this point in the draft that you can really bank on. Maybe he can become an eventual starter. That's something that you do have to consider. And then pick 249. Overall depth wise, you have to consider that wide receiver spot at this pick, just because you have some guys that are going to be free agents, like Auden Tate will be a free agent. I believe Michael Thomas will be a free agent for them. Trey Turner out of Virginia Tech, Mike Harley out of Miami. I'm actually going to go with a guy like Mike Harley. I think he fits in very, very well with this offense. Could be a really nice depth receiver for this team. And that is going to conclude that part of the draft. Let's go ahead and review, guys. Let's take a look at what we were able to acquire. Daniel Falele at the tackle spot, Darian Kinnard at the guard spot. You are significantly improving that offensive line, in my opinion. And then you go ahead and select a guy like Marcus Jones, good man-to-man corner, Dane Belton in that secondary to really hedge and protect against, what might happen in free agency. Cole Turner, another reason why you want to draft another depth tight end, good value there. Merlin Robertson, Jeremiah Moon, and Mike Harley. And that's going to conclude this draft. I think the Bengals here, if they do this, they're getting exactly what they need along that offensive line. Maybe they can select another one. It really depends on the preference and what they like for, their current depth guys. But Overall, I love Daniel Falele, huge projectable offensive lineman that could be phenomenal for this team. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you are new. Also, please leave the like if you do enjoy this kind of content. I'm excited to present more of these team-based mocks. So let me know in the comment section below who you want to do next.